Hi there, my name is Scott McDonald, and today I'm going to teach you one of the most popular skills on Trampwall, the Swan Dive. The more front flip variations you can already do, the easier it's going to be to learn, but at the very bare minimum you should be comfortable with front 3/4, porpoises, and running the wall. Because you have to push yourself up from the face of the wall, I really recommend wearing grippy wrestling shoes. If you can't for whatever reason, go barefoot, but socks or anything that risks making you slip is the enemy. First, I'm going to explain dive technique in great detail. After that, I'll show you some drills that break it down into much simpler chunks. Then we'll go into troubleshooting, variations, and ways that you can keep progressing and improving your skills. Let's get into it. The more you understand dive technique, the safer and easier this process is going to be. Start by running the wall, then bring your chest and shoulders forward and up so that by the time your first foot makes contact, your chest is already slightly higher than your hips, and your hips are slightly higher than your foot. Your feet will anchor you against the wall in a comfortably wide lunge. As you come upright, start to swing your arms up in front of you, aiming to get them directly overhead in conjunction with both feet pushing off the face. Note that my arms are swinging up and back, not forward and down. This might sound counterintuitive considering it's a front flip motion, but the whole point of the arm swing is to gain extra height and stability, not to initiate the flip. Once you've taken off, rotate your shoulders like you're dumping out 2 glasses of water, then you can either hold them out to the sides or bring them down. Your feet should leave the wall by pushing you upward, not outward, and initiating enough heel drive to carry you through the entire flip. If you're wondering how much heel drive that is, it's really not that much, but if you feel like you need to bend at the waist or accelerate yourself to complete the flip, you needed a little more heel drive when you took off. From the side, you can very clearly see the difference between a lazy takeoff and one that used the correct amount of power. The lazy one is still a perfectly fine swan dive, but the extended one with more heel drive looks more confident and clean in the air, and if you're trying to get into performing, that's what you want to do. When you duck over to your back, keep your body tight and engaged and land in the same position you started in, with your knees bent, feet elevated, arms bent in front of you like a tramp T-Rex, and everything from your tailbone to your head flat against the trampoline. If you did it correctly, you should be able to return straight into a wall run. As far as visual reference points go, as I come off my back, I look at the wall where I need to place my feet, and then once my feet are there, I look up at the ceiling, then I keep my head neutral and scan my eyes over the wall, the trampoline, and then finally back to the wall again once I've flipped over so I know where I need to kick for the next run. You don't necessarily need to do all of that. Looking up is definitely a matter of personal preference. A lot of people prefer just to look forwards at the wall, but I find that looking up prevents you from dropping your head and initiating the flip too early. So that's how a swan dive works. I know it's a lot of information to think about, but that's why we have drills. For these first attempts, there are 3 ways you can maximize safety. First, run on the short end of the wall. Second, use a wall that's taller than you are. And third, have a friend throw a mat. Our first drill simulates the takeoff. All you have to do is run the wall, then push yourself upward from a staggered stance. Reach your arms up and overhead, bring your torso upright, and bring your heels beneath yourself to land bouncing on your feet facing the wall. If you've already seen my cradle tutorial, this will be very familiar territory, and if not, good news, you're getting a head start on cradles. Next, do the same takeoff, but now add a 1/4 flip rotation to land on your hands and knees, and then eventually your stomach. The front landing in particular can be pretty spooky, arguably spookier than just doing a swan dive, so if possible, have a friend throw a mat for you. The next drill is just to get you used to flipping with a wall in front of your face, because that can be pretty weird. For this one, you're just going to bounce on your feet facing the wall and do a front 3/4. Once you've done a few, think about using your heel drive to initiate the flip instead of dropping your torso. This is also a good time to get used to the visual reference points you'll use in your dive. So try to look forward at the wall, then down at the trampoline, then back at the wall. This last drill will be more useful to come back to once you've tried some dives, but if you're feeling uncomfortable with the spacing, you can reach your hands forward and push off the face of the wall. This made me feel much safer when I was learning, but if you do these, just be wary of staying too close. Now that you understand the technique and you've broken it down, it's time to go for your first dive. Most people naturally rush their first attempts, especially on a short wall, but doing this can either keep you too close or blast you across the trampoline. By running on the short end and using a taller wall, you have a lot more leeway in terms of distance. For your first attempt, I recommend running around chest height and not stressing over the technique whatsoever. Your first dives will probably be very hunched over and stay relatively low, and that is perfectly fine. No matter how bad or ugly these might feel, you're already light years ahead of where you previously were, because just attempting your first dive is by far the hardest part of this process. Once you've done a bunch of dives and you're starting to feel more comfortable, take it over to the long side of the wall. Over here you have much less leeway in terms of distance, so your placement needs to be more precise. Once you've done a few on this side, remove the mat, start improving your technique bit by bit, and gradually take it higher until you feel satisfied with your shiny new swan dive. Let's examine the most common fears and mistakes people make in their swan dives and how to either fix or avoid them outright. At first, you're probably going to be worried about catching your feet on the wall mid-flip, but unless you stay extremely close, get perfectly extended, and flip way too aggressively, you don't really need to worry about this. In reality, there are two main issues to look out for: pushing too far out and staying too close. If you push too far out, you might land with your head in the springs, which is unpleasant, or on the frame, which will be a very bad time. If you stay too close, your butt can land in the springs and you'll have a very sketchy rebound. Both of these issues tend to be caused by either your chest position on takeoff or by pushing incorrectly with your feet. If you take off with your chest too upright, you'll probably wind up staying too close. And if you take off with your chest too low, your legs tend to blast you outwards. You should feel like you're pushing yourself up over the bed, not backwards and not towards the wall. At first, you might be tempted to stay low because height can be intimidating, but if your hair is brushing the trampoline, go higher. Your first dives will probably land with straight knees or your feet touching the trampoline. This tends to resolve itself with time, but if you're aware of it, you can consciously fix it early. Lastly, make sure you're not aggressively throwing your arms down or really at all. In general, you want your swan dive to feel like this slow, graceful, steep parabola and not a panicked, violent, aggressive move. Now that you've gotten acquainted with swan dives, here are a few ways to keep progressing. There's really no substitute for training and consistency, so I recommend setting a quota of at least 10 swan dives every time you train. If you keep that up for a couple weeks, they will very quickly become a casual warm-up skill. Another fun way to progress is to explore different swan dive variations. You can do tucks, pikes, grabs, running man, add a flip, add a twist. Really, any variation you can do on a front flip or a porpoise, you can also do as a swan dive. I'll put out tutorials for all those variations at some point, but in the meantime, I hope this video equipped you with everything you need to learn swan dives. As always, please like, share, subscribe, let me know in the comments if you have any questions or requests for future tutorials. I'm always available for online or in-person coaching. Feel free to check out my Instagram at Scott A. McDonald. And yeah, best of luck with your swan dives, and until next time, peace!